Good evening, my dear listeners. Welcome to Ancestral Echoes by Hoberty, where the wisdom of our ancestors whispers truths that our modern hearts still need to hear. Tonight, I bring you a story that will test everything you believe about love, duty, and the courage it takes to choose with your heart when the entire world demands you choose with your head. This is the tale of Kofi the warrior and Amina the weaver, two souls who dared to love across the boundaries society had drawn, two hearts that refused to accept that status mattered more than truth. What would you do if the person you loved could give you everything, wealth, power, a crown, but your heart belonged to someone the world said you could never have? Before we begin this journey, if you love these timeless tales that speak to the challenges we still face today, please subscribe to Ancestral Echoes by Hoberty. And stay with me until the very end. This story carries a lesson that might just change how you think about the choices you're facing right now. Let us begin. In a kingdom where the Sahara met the green lands, there stood a village famous throughout the territories for two remarkable things: cloth so beautiful that traders came from distant empires to purchase it, and warriors so fierce that even the mightiest armies thought twice before challenging them. In the weaving quarter, where colors exploded like captured rainbows and the air hummed with the music of looms, lived a young woman named Amina. At 20 years old, her reputation had already spread beyond her village walls. When Amina wove, it was as if the spirits themselves guided her fingers. But Amina was more than just a skilled craftswoman. She possessed that rare combination of beauty and wisdom that made old women smile knowingly and young men stumble over their own feet when she passed. When she spoke, even the marketplace gossips would quiet down to listen. Amina, her mother would say, pride and worry mixing in her voice, your hands create magic, and your words carry wisdom. But remember, daughter, we are weavers. Our place is here, at our looms, not in dreams that reach beyond our station. Across the village, where metal rang against metal from dawn until dusk and young men were forged into protectors through sweat and discipline, lived the warriors. Among them walked Kofi, 22 years old, recently returned from the borderlands where his name had become legend. Kofi was everything a warrior should be: strong as the baobab, brave as the lion, quick as the hunting leopard. The scars on his arms told stories of battles survived, of villages protected, of courage proven. But anyone who looked into his eyes would see something unexpected, a gentleness that suggested a man who fought to protect, not to conquer. The market was neutral ground where weavers sold their art and warriors bought provisions. It was there, among the shouting vendors and the riot of colors, that destiny arranged their first meeting. Kofi had been walking through with no particular destination in mind. Amina had been arranging cloth, her hands moving with the practiced grace of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Then their eyes met across the crowded square, and something fundamental shifted in the air between them. Your cloth, Kofi heard himself saying, though he had no need for fabric, it's the most beautiful I've seen. Amina looked up, her heart doing something strange and unfamiliar in her chest. Are you an expert in weaving, warrior? She asked with a slight smile. His laugh was warm, genuine. I know nothing of threads and looms. But I recognize beauty when I see it. That first conversation became many. Market encounters turned into evening walks when the village slept. Public politeness evolved into private revelations by the river where only the moon witnessed their truth. I never thought a warrior would understand poetry, Amina confessed one evening. And I never imagined a weaver could understand the loneliness of being strong when you're afraid inside, Kofi replied. In those stolen moments, they shared dreams of a future together, children who would learn both loom and spear, a love that honored both their traditions while creating something entirely new. But as any wise person knows, dreams whispered in moonlight must eventually face the harsh light of day. The summons came on a morning that seemed no different from any other, until the king's drummers filled the air with urgent rhythms, calling all warriors to the palace courtyard. Kofi stood among his brothers in arms, that familiar tightness in his stomach that always preceded something significant. Around him, men speculated, was it war? A new campaign? Tribute negotiations? When King Okoye appeared with his daughter, Princess Zora, at his side, the speculation ended and shock began. The princess was undeniably beautiful, adorned in gold and royal kent, but her eyes held a sadness no amount of wealth could mask. "Warriors of our kingdom," the king's voice boomed. "You have defended our lands with honor and courage. Today, I offer one of you the opportunity to join my royal family." The courtyard stirred with anticipation. "A competition will be held," King Okoye continued. "The warrior who brings the greatest tribute, through conquest, negotiation, or extraordinary valor, will be given my daughter's hand in marriage and a position as advisor to my heir." Excitement erupted like wildfire. For common warriors, this was unimaginable, the chance to rise from soldier to prince, to secure not just their own future but their entire family's prosperity for generations. But Kofi felt his heart sink like a stone thrown into deep water. His fellow warriors clapped his back, already congratulating him, and everyone knew Kofi was among the most capable. But all he could think of was Amina's smile, the promises they'd whispered, the future they dared to imagine. By midday, the news had spread through every compound and corner. And with news came gossip, sharp-tongued and merciless. Amina sat at her loom, her hands moving automatically while her ears caught fragments of passing conversations. The princess herself. "Can you imagine? Kofi will compete, of course. He'd be mad not to. I heard he's been seeing some girl, but what does that matter now? Love doesn't feed you when a throne is offered. A weaver's daughter competing with a princess." The woman's laughter was cruel. Like comparing cotton to gold. Amina's fingers stilled on her work. For the first time since their love began, doubt crept in like cold water. What was her love compared to a kingdom? What were her simple gifts compared to royal wealth? Her father found her staring at unfinished work, tears threatening to fall. "Daughter," he said gently, sitting beside her, "prepare your heart for what your head already knows. Warriors and weavers, royal competitions, and simple love, these things don't belong in the same story." "But father," he promised. Promises made in moonlight, her father interrupted sadly, often disappear in daylight. "I say this not to hurt you, child, but to protect you. Better a small pain now than a broken heart later." That night, Amina lay awake, her mind circling the same impossible questions. Would Kofi really choose her over a princess? Could love truly defeat ambition? And even if he wanted to choose her, should she let him throw away such an opportunity? Meanwhile, Kofi sat awake in the warrior quarters, holding a small object and thinking about the choice that was about to test everything he believed about love, honor, and what truly mattered in life. The storm was gathering. They met that night at their usual place, though both had wondered if the other would come. The air crackled with unspoken fears. Amina reached the river first, her heart pounding so hard she was certain the entire village could hear it. When Kofi's silhouette appeared through the darkness, relief and terror warred within her. "Amina," he breathed, grasping her hands. "I've been going mad thinking you might not come, that you might have decided I should compete, that you might have decided what?" Her voice was sharper than intended, fear making her defensive. "That you should compete. That you should take what any warrior would kill for. Why wouldn't I decide that? It makes sense to everyone except to us," Kofi interrupted, pulling her closer. "Except to hearts that chose each other before any king announced any competition. But how can I ask you to turn away from a throne?" Amina's voice broke. "How can I be the reason you reject wealth and power? The village already says I'm not worthy of you. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm being selfish, wanting you when you could have so much more." Kofi pressed his fingers gently to her lips, silencing the doubt that was poisoning the truth they both knew. "Listen to me, Amina. Really listen." He knelt before her, not in formal ceremony, but in the vulnerable way a man kneels before the woman who holds his entire heart. "I have stood on battlefields where death was certain. I have faced enemies who wanted to take everything from me. But none of that compared to the fear I felt today, the fear of losing you. Not to death or distance, but to doubt. To the poison of other people's opinions about what I should want. No throne, his voice was fierce with conviction, no jewel, no royal blood can compare to the thread of love that ties me to you. Do you think a palace would ever feel like home without you in it? Do you think wealth matters when my heart would be poor without you? Tears streamed down Amina's face. But what about your duty? Your honor? Your family's dreams for you? With trembling hands, she drew from her pocket something she'd been working on for weeks, a woven bracelet of breathtaking beauty. The pattern told their story, two separate paths that wove together to create something stronger than either could be alone. I made this for you, she whispered. To remind you that love, like weaving, takes patience and skill. That the strongest cloth comes from threads supporting each other, not from one strand trying to bear everything alone. Kofi tied the bracelet around his wrist with the gravity of a sacred vow. This will be my compass. When the world tries to pull me toward what it says I should want, this will remind me of what I actually need. You, Amina. Only you. They held each other as the moon climbed higher, making promises that cynics would call foolish and romantics would call brave. I will compete, Kofi said finally. Because to refuse would shame my family and raise questions about my courage. But I compete with this bracelet on my wrist, your name in my heart, and a plan that neither the king nor the gossips have imagined. What plan? Amina asked, hope and fear mingling. Trust me, he said, kissing her forehead. And wait for me. No matter what you hear, no matter what others say, remember this night. Remember this bracelet. Remember that a warrior's greatest victory isn't always the one that wins crowns. As dawn painted the sky, they parted. Kofi to prepare for a competition everyone assumed he would win. Amina to wait and hope, holding on to promises that would be tested by every voice telling her to give up. The bracelet caught the first rays of sun as Kofi walked back to the warrior quarters. It would stay there through everything that followed, a constant reminder of what truly mattered. 3 days later, the king's challenge was revealed, and it was more daunting than anyone imagined. Warriors would journey to the neighboring Ashanti kingdom where raiders had been troubling the borderlands. The man who brought back either a peace treaty or the raiders' leader would win the princess and position. It was a journey requiring weeks, perhaps months. A mission dangerous enough that not all who left would return. Amina watched from the edge of the crowd as warriors prepared to leave. She couldn't approach Kofi publicly, their love was still secret. But their eyes met across the distance, and he touched the bracelet on his wrist. The message was clear, I remember. I'm coming back. Wait for me. Then they were gone, disappearing down the road in dust and determination, leaving behind a village humming with speculation. Days became weeks. Weeks stretched into months. And with each passing day, the whispers grew louder. Poor girl, women would say loudly enough for Amina to hear. She actually believed the warrior would choose her over a princess. My cousin sent word from the border, another added with relish. Kofi has been seen dining with the Ashanti princess. They say he's negotiating alliances that involve more than politics. Amina tried to focus on her weaving, to let the rhythm drown out the voices. But each day grew harder. Each night she would touch her wrist where a matching bracelet should be, wondering if he still wore his, still remembered. Her father approached one evening as she stared at untouched work. Daughter, I must speak plainly because I love you. The warrior has been gone 2 months. Word comes of his success, of treaties being negotiated, of his valor being celebrated. But no word comes to you. No message. He wears the bracelet, Father. I know he does. Perhaps. Or perhaps he wore it until something better was offered. This isn't about his character, child. It's about reality. A weaver's daughter and a warrior destined for royal marriage. This was always a dream that couldn't survive daylight. The village weaving guild offered her a prestigious position, master weaver for the royal household. It was an honor rarely given to one so young, a chance to prove her worth in ways the village understood. Take it, her mother urged. Stop waiting for something that may never come. Build a life you can count on. But each night, Amina would look at the moon and remember Kofi's face in its light. She would touch her empty wrist and remember his voice making promises. And she would think, one more day. I'll give him one more day. Then, on a morning when Amina had almost convinced herself to accept the weaving position, a messenger arrived. The warriors were returning. Kofi was among them. And he had succeeded. The village exploded with preparation. Kofi had negotiated peace and captured the raid leader. He was returning victorious, ready to claim his prize. The royal wedding will be magnificent, people whispered. Amina stood alone in her compound, heart torn between desperate hope and protective resignation. In hours, she would know if every cynical voice had been right, if promises made in moonlight truly did fade in ambition's harsh light. She touched her empty wrist one more time and whispered, if love is meant to be more than a beautiful dream, let it prove itself today. The sun began descending, painting the sky gold and crimson. Soon the warriors would arrive. Soon everyone would know if the weaver's daughter had been a fool to hope, or if love could triumph over every reasonable, practical, sensible reason it should fail. The trial was about to face its final test. The warriors returned as conquering heroes, their arrival announced by drummers who made the earth itself pulse with celebration. The entire village lined the road, cheering and waving. At the procession's head rode Kofi, looking every inch the hero. Dusty from travel, bearing new scars, but his bearing was that of a man who had accomplished everything asked of him. Amina stood at the back of the crowd, heart pounding. Then she saw it, the flash of woven thread on his wrist. The bracelet. After all this time, all these trials, he still wore it. Hope blazed in her chest like sudden fire. The procession moved to the palace, where King Okoye had prepared a ceremony for the ages. The throne room had been opened to the courtyard so all could witness a warrior becoming a prince. Princess Zara stood beside her father in ceremonial finery that made her look like a goddess. But her eyes held no joy, just resigned acceptance of being a prize to be awarded. King Okoye raised his hand and silence fell. Kofi, son of the warrior clan, step forward to receive the honor you have earned. Kofi moved through the crowd with steady steps. But those watching closely noticed his hand kept touching the bracelet, like a talisman, like a reminder. You have brought peace where there was conflict, the king declared. You have shown courage, wisdom, and skill beyond your years. As promised, you have earned the greatest honor our kingdom can bestow. He gestured toward Princess Sarah. My daughter's hand in marriage, and the position of royal war chief. Wealth, power, and honor are yours. Speak now, Kofi. Do you accept the prize you have earned? The crowd held its breath. This was how these stories were supposed to end, the hero claiming his reward. Kofi stood silent for what seemed like eternity. His hand moved to the bracelet, and everyone who knew the rumors understood what was about to happen. He raised his arm, letting sunlight catch the intricate woven pattern. Your Majesty, I am honored beyond words by what you offer. But I must speak a truth my heart will not let me silence. Murmurs rippled through the courtyard. The king's eyes narrowed. This was not the script. I wear this bracelet given to me by a woman whose skill at the loom is matched only by her wisdom of heart. A woman who taught me that true wealth isn't measured in gold or titles, but in waking beside someone whose presence makes you grateful to be alive. Gasps erupted. Some in approval, many in shock, a few in scandal. Amina, daughter of weavers, Kofi called out, his eyes finding hers, step forward. Let these people see the woman who holds the true crown, my heart's devotion. The crowd parted, and Amina walked forward on trembling legs. She had never imagined this, standing before king and kingdom in a simple weaver's dress among all this royal finery. Kofi met her halfway, taking her hand with gentleness that contrasted his warrior's strength. "This," he said, turning to the king, "is my true crown. This is the prize I choose." King Okoye's face showed anger at having arrangements upended, confusion at this rejection, but also something that might have been respect for such audacity. And Princess Sarah? Her face showed not insult, but relief. She too had been a pawn, and seeing someone refuse to play that game gave her something she hadn't felt in years: hope. The courtyard fell into profound silence. Everything hung in balance. Would the king honor such honesty or punish it? Advisors whispered urgently, this was disrespect, tradition trampled, a lesson must be taught. But then something unexpected happened that would change everything. Princess Sarah stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. "Father, may I speak?" The king looked at his daughter in surprise. She rarely spoke in ceremonies, trained to be silent and decorative. "I have watched this warrior complete your challenge with honor. He has proven courage in battle and peace. But today, he has shown a different courage, the courage to be honest about his heart." She addressed the crowd. "My father promised a prize as if I were a jewel to be awarded. But I am a person with my own heart and hopes. If I must marry, let it be to someone who chooses me as Kofi has chosen his weaver, with certainty, with honesty, with love that doesn't need a king's command." King Okoye's expression began to crack. He had spent years making political arrangements, forgetting what it meant to choose from the heart. Then Elder Akojua, the village's most respected grandmother, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I have seen many marriages in my 90 years. The happiest have never been those arranged by kings alone, but those where hearts chose and wisdom blessed the choice." Other voices joined. "The warrior has proven his worth. True love serves the kingdom better than forced alliances. Even kings were young ones." King Okoye looked around at his people, really looked, and saw not subjects needing commands, but a community teaching him something he'd forgotten. "Kofi, son of warriors," the king said finally, voice softer, "you have shown courage in battle. But today you have shown something rarer, courage to speak truth to power, to choose love over advancement, to honor your heart's wisdom. I cannot force a man who has proven his honor to accept a reward his heart doesn't want. Nor can I force my daughter to marry a man whose heart belongs elsewhere. Such a union would dishonor us all." A roar of approval rose from the crowd. This was a king showing wisdom, not just power. "Kofi and Amina, your love has taught this kingdom something valuable. That courage takes many forms, and sometimes the bravest choice is following your heart when the world offers crowns. I give you my blessing. May your union be as strong as the cloth you weave, as enduring as the courage you've shown, and may it remind us that love chosen freely is worth more than all arranged alliances in all kingdoms." Kofi pulled Amina into his arms as the crowd erupted in celebration. Tears streamed down both their faces, tears of relief, joy, gratitude for love that survived every test. Princess Sarah smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. She approached Amina. "Thank you. You've shown me that even princesses can hope for love rather than just duty." 3 weeks later, the village witnessed a wedding unlike any before. It combined weaving guild and warrior clan traditions, creating something entirely new, a ceremony honoring both origins while celebrating the new path they were forging. Amina wore a dress of her own weaving, patterns telling their story. Kofi stood beside her, warrior regalia complemented by the woven bracelet that had never left his wrist. Warriors and weavers, royals and common folk, all celebrated together. The invisible walls separating their worlds crumbled before love that refused to respect boundaries drawn by others. Years passed. Their children grew up learning both loom and spear, understanding that strength comes in many forms and that choosing your own path with courage is as valuable as defending your village. Amina became a master weaver sought by kingdoms far and wide. But more, she became a teacher telling young girls they didn't have to accept that their worth was measured only by who chose them, that they could choose their own paths with wisdom and courage. Kofi rose to chief military advisor, but he taught warriors that true courage wasn't just facing enemies with spears, but facing your own heart with honesty and defending love as fiercely as you defend your kingdom. Their home became a village symbol, where warriors' strength and weavers' artistry combined to create something more beautiful than either could achieve alone. In her old age, surrounded by grandchildren wearing woven cloth and carrying practice spears, Amina would tell them the bracelet story. Your grandfather could have chosen a throne. He chose love instead. Not because love is always easy, but because some things are worth every sacrifice. Remember, children, true love is not bound by titles or wealth, but by courage to honor the heart's truth. The strongest families are built not on what society says you should want, but on what your soul knows it needs. And so ends our tale of the weaver's daughter and the warrior's promise. But the questions it asks echo beyond its ending. What about you, dear listener? When faced with choosing between what looks impressive to others and what your heart knows is true, which path do you take? When the world offers crowns but your heart wants something simpler, truer, do you have Kofi's courage? Amina's patience. If this tale moved you, if it reminded you that authentic choice matters more than impressive appearances, then subscribe to Ancestral Echoes by Hobothy. Join our community that believes ancient wisdom still speaks to modern hearts. Next week, we journey to the Mali Empire where a young griot must choose between singing songs that please an emperor or truths that could save an empire. Another tale of courage, another moment when one choice changes everything. Thank you for this time together. Remember, every time you choose authentically instead of acceptably, every time you honor your heart over the world's expectations, you honor the courage of all who risked everything for love that was true. May you weave your own pattern with courage. May you keep promises when keeping them cost you. And may you remember that the greatest victories aren't always the ones that win crowns, but the ones that win lives worth living. Until next time, may your heart guide you true. This is Ancestral Echoes by Hobothy. Keep listening to the wisdom that never grows old.